Okay, agenda item 3G, discuss and consider the first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 2 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of New Braunfels, Texas, Section 2-39B, to eliminate the need for citizens to provide their addresses when addressing the City Council during meetings and to change the time for a person to speak to 3 minutes. Mr. Camerino.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Previously, the council had some discussion regarding strategies to revise the procedures for which folks address the city council during either citizen communications or public hearings. In fact, just a really quick run through of a previous presentation that you have seen before, had those discussions in late November and also December, and then in January of this year, we brought a first reading of an ordinance to do certain things. One of those, and this did not require an ordinance revision, but we had a discussion about limiting presentations, also about revising the time for citizens to speak from 5 to 3 minutes, provided you some information about, we actually surveyed 20 different cities, and there was only one of those 20 cities that allowed for 5 minutes, the rest were 3 minutes. The other thing that we discussed was a speaker registration form, or requiring a registration form, while also eliminating the need for citizens to state their address. There was also discussion about public hearings and the total time allotted per side for or against, revising that from 30 to 20 minutes, 20 against, for a total of 40 minutes. However, the council chose not to take any action in January on those proposed strategies. Recently, the mayor had a conversation with staff and requested that we bring to you all 2 items for consideration. One being the elimination of requiring citizens who wish to address the city council, eliminating the need for them to provide their address. And then 2, revising the amount of time allotted for each individual speaker from 5 to 3 minutes. And so that's what you have before you, just those 2 items, not all of the other things that had been previously discussed with the city council. With that, Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you. But again, that was just a really quick presentation of what had been previously discussed and then what is being brought forward to you at the request of the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Camerino, and thank you, council, for listening to this presentation again. We listened to a quite lengthy and detailed presentation by staff in November, December, and then again in January. We listened to what the citizens had to say when we discussed this in January. I don't believe anyone, whether it's staff or anyone sitting at council, made any promises to anyone that this would not come back to city council, because I think there's some merit in the 2 things that we're discussing tonight, and that's the reason I asked staff to bring these back to us so we could have another discussion about the address issue, which has been brought up to us many times by folks. In fact, the gentleman tonight brought that up, that he felt like that was possibly the reason why he was being harassed. And I think there have been other members of our community who have come and said similar things, that they had people getting in touch with them because they were giving their address. And I think it's only wise for us to protect our citizens. The second part of this is moving it from 5 to 3 minutes. We're not limiting the amount of time for any issue. It'll be 30 minutes for, 30 minutes against. And with this move from 5 to 3, you get 10 people instead of 6. And so I think that there's some common sense reasons in my mind why I asked them to help us bring this back and have this discussion this evening. And so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, guys. I just think that there's opportunity for us to continue this discussion. And if we gave anyone any indication or any reason to believe that we were never going to bring this back to the community, I apologize if that came out of my mouth or if I gave anybody that thought. So we'll move on with discussions. Any council members have any comments to make?
I'm completely supportive of removing addresses. I've explained it to, or I've conveyed that to the city attorney and a few other people in the city secretary's office when I was running and what have you, that I'd like that we're removing that. I would like to keep, if you're a city resident or not, let us know if you, how it's going to affect you or not. I've gone to other city council meetings in other cities, and people have flown in from Maryland and Colorado and whatnot on the topic. And you don't know if they're really going to be affected by the ordinance or if they're a activist coming in to speak on that item. So I'd like to keep if they're a city resident or not, but I'm for removing the address.
So a good comment. We've had at least one, maybe a couple of the speakers tonight during citizens' comment that gave his district, and I think that's equally as good, correct? I mean, could you live with that part of just giving their district?
If people know what district they live in. I'm okay with that they know that they live in the city of New Braunfels or not. There's a lot of people, or I shouldn't say a lot, some people don't know what district they live in, especially with the redistricting just happening, a year or so ago.
Okay. Is that, Ms. Acevedo, is that something that we could add to this in addition to that wording with the addresses? Ask the speakers to identify the district, or if they live in the city limits of New
If
Braunfels?
they're residents of the city of New
Right.
Braunfels, or if they want to volunteer their district, that's, do you
Okay.
want to make that optional or requirement, or
Yeah, at least the citizen.
is it
It
encouraged?
makes a lot of sense to me.
Is it encouraged or
Um,
required?
What's your thought?
I would like the residents of the city, your residents, if you live in a city, are not required. District, optional. Like I said, not everybody knows what district they
Right.
live in.
I agree with Councilman Willis. I think we should know if they're a resident or not a resident. I would like to know if they're in my district, obviously, because I'd like to reach out to someone in my district if I need to be, but they don't have to give us that information. There's other ways to contact us that they're free to contact us with. Do they have to register? Is that not part of this
That's
at
not
all?
part of this.
Okay.
No registration, none of the other items that staff presented, other than the address and the 5 minutes to 3 minutes. But this was another, I think, in talking to staff, they had indicated that there had been some comments about stating where you live. Are you a resident of the city, and maybe your district, so.
And the next item is the 3 minutes by 5 minutes. But you, as the mayor, you have discretion to extend anyone's time at any given point, right? Or any given agenda item you can extend as being the mayor,
Beyond the 30 minutes.
beyond the 30 minutes or beyond the 3 minutes
Right.
at any point. Okay.
Councilmember Blakey, I saw your light on. Do you, okay. Any other comments from council or? Okay, we will open this up for public comment. If you have comments or questions on this item, please step up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and limit your comments to 5 minutes or less.
David Warmke, 472 Sealy. Now, I'm going to test to see how well y'all have been paying attention. I gave y'all a line several times. You can get your point out in 3 minutes. Now, tonight, I went 4 minutes and 53 seconds. About a month ago, I went 5 minutes and 5 seconds on my TERS presentation, and I did a little under 5 minutes on the other presentation that night. There are times when you can do it in 3, and there are times when you can't. And that's just my thought there. I know there's a few towns maybe that have gone the other way. Frisco, I understand, has gone the other way. But thank you for consideration, doing such a nice job of handling this. God bless you.
Mr. Warnke, that was 1 minute.
I need to get a hearing aid. I had a hearing test. I can hear fine, but I can't distinguish words, so.
Susie Pratt, Evergreen Estates. Good evening. Earlier this evening, I asked for this item to be moved forward, not because I care to get home sooner. It's because items at the end of the agenda are rarely attended, which is, I'm sure, why it was placed there. Since I began attending city council meetings over a year ago, I've watched as the city has made moves that would make any PR strategist scream when it comes to trying to drive engagement. In fact, many of my calm colleagues and professors' opinions, it seems, almost intentionally designed for low engagement. With such sparse attendance on such impactful items like tonight, I can tell that that strategy is working. We saw items earlier this evening, the rezoning on Morningside to name one, that had strong opposition online, and yet no one appeared here to speak against it. They don't know when, where, or how city council meetings happen. There's cities the size of 10,000 people and less who actively try to increase engagement by streaming their meetings online on Facebook. I offer my services for free for a communication strategy for higher engagement. There's also a darker side at play here and why time is so important to me. Many local business owners and residents have become fearful of attending or speaking out on city matters for fear that they would receive retaliation from the city. This was a fear that I thought was simply an exaggeration until I myself encountered intimidation perpetrated by public servants at City Hall. My husband's HR department in Houston received an anonymous letter to his employer claiming falsehoods about him, but mostly seeming to target me for exercising my First Amendment rights at city council meetings. I'm happy to provide this letter after the meeting to individuals who ask for it. I learned of another attempt at an intimidation when my employer was contacted multiple times by a city employee to be warned against my continued employment, and the monies awarded to them by the EDC were held over their heads. I'm unaware where limiting employees' free speech at city council meetings was a stipulation for receiving economic development money. I would like to remind council that abuse of position is a crime. I would also like to remind council that it is at your discretion to allow time for more people to speak like you did at NBU, making shorter times unnecessary the majority of the time, and that each and every one of you represents the citizens of this city and not just the power brokers. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak on this item? Okay.
Vaughn Thompson, 520 FM 306, District 4. I do like the fact that we want to get rid of the people saying their address like that. I don't think there's any problem with people signing up, especially when there's items like taxes, and like MBU was a big deal. Things like that. Like I said, I don't think 5 minutes is too long for people to explain that, you know, this is affecting their either livelihood or their standard of living, or basically just not being able to have any freedom as a citizen of this town. So, like I said, 5 minutes to 3, to me, it should stay at 5, and then have leeway from there. But definitely no more saying your name. I mean, there's people that watch this. And like I said, I'm not afraid of anybody. I pity the fool who tries to mess with me. But there's a lot of people out here who don't want, I mean, for them, this is very intimidating, just to even come up in public. But to have people online watching you, and they have an agenda against your political views, you know, they can start harassing you if they know ways to get to you. That way, I think if people at least write down their address, because we sign in, you know, if there's a very controversial subject or something that needs a lot of discussion, create a sign-in sheet for that so people can speak. So, and they can also show that they are here, that they do live here, that they're, like I said, Atlanta's living with that right now. People coming in from other states that burning stuff. So to me, those are very practical, but it also still protects our First Amendment rights to address our government with our issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Questions, comments?
Alex Deli again. I'm glad it seems like all y'all agree about the address thing. That should not ever been on there to begin with. There is retaliation in the city. There is harassment in the city. It's there, rampant. I mean, more than one person has the same issue I've had. Somebody's called my employer like somebody else, and my employer just laughed at him. They said, I know what he does. I know he's outspoken. Don't care. but it's happened to me personally, so I can speak on that. The 3 to 5 minutes, I don't even know why these other cities are up here, honestly, because that's not New Braunfels. New Braunfels is New Braunfels. Who cares what they do? They're their own cities. Let them do what they do. I've only talked for 30 seconds so far. Some people talk for 5 minutes. I'm on a local parent board for a nonprofit. I'm on a state parent council, and I don't even share what those are because I fear retaliation for somebody to go to ruin what they do to pull funds and stuff like that because, oh, well, Alex Deli's on y'all's parent council. Alex Deli's on the state parent council. That's not cool at all. And I know people will do it. People ask me, what council are you on? Well, I'm not telling you because I know what you're going to do with that information. So that's the whole thing with the addresses. We've been working on giving speeches because I'm supposed to go speak in Austin on the parent council that I'm on for 3 to 5 minutes. There's no reason why it can't be 5 minutes. Some people speak 5 minutes, some people speak 3 minutes, some people speak a minute and a half. Just that person. So there's no reason to really limit it at all. So just keep it at 5 minutes, keep it that. There shouldn't be any registration requirement. That shouldn't be there. You said it wasn't, so it shouldn't be there. Even the sign-in sheet has your address on it. I drew a line through where my address goes. It should just be a checkbox for citizen or not citizen. Same thing like you said. Just come up here, say citizen New Braunfels. That's cool. No big deal. I'd leave it at that. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Mr. Camerino, if this passes both readings, would we change the sign-in sheet to
Yes,
not
sir.
have them?
We'll change the sign-in sheet to mirror what's adopted in the
Okay,
ordinance.
good deal, thank you.
David Gonzalez, District 4. I like the idea about the district and not having to do your address. That's the one thing I do like about this. I do have a concern about decreasing the time, and just speaking to that a bit. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. I keep this on my desk every day, all day. Okay? So the fact that you were trying to decrease it is, I had to look up the word abridge. I'm not a lawyer, but I did want to understand what that kind of meant. If you look it up on Google, it's going to take you, first link is Merriam Dictionary, that's what I went to. To shorten or by omission of words without sacrifice, or to condense. To shorten in duration or extent, or to diminish. So that's kind of what we're doing here, right? You're trying to diminish the time a person speaks. Like other people have said, there's 5 minutes right now available, but usually not everybody takes the whole 5 minutes. I mean, it's been evident many times here. We're not in DC speaking at the Capitol. We're not in Austin speaking in front of the legislature. We are here in New Braunfels, Texas. We are speaking to the people that are closest to us, to the people who are supposed to represent us. This is where it starts, right here. Abridging free speech at this level will have lasting effects at higher levels. Again, most people don't take the whole time. I'm not taking the whole time. I just wanted to express this, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Laurie Schrank, Morningside. We're heading down, as people in the legal world use, a slippery slope. Because when we start cutting the minutes here, and I'm going to say I'm for eliminating the address thing. When we start cutting the minutes here, though, we're going to 3 minutes. Then the next time you come back, it's going to be 2 minutes. Next time you come back, it's going to be no minutes. We're heading down a slippery slope with doing this. And I'm going to tell y'all, like I tell my kids, I don't care what everybody else is doing. If they're jumping off of bridges, doesn't mean you're going to be jumping off a bridge. So just because these cities you've listed here have gone to 3 minutes doesn't mean we have to. It's the same with things that go on in California that get spread across the United States. Just because California is doing it doesn't mean the rest of us have to do it. At some point, We have to be our own. And New Braunfels has always been a strong German hometown that values the ability to say what you need to say. And so many German families have experienced being restricted. My father-in-law, I spoke the last time I came about my father-in-law who passed away that day. He didn't come and protest against his property being taken into the city because he was afraid of the way he grew up, that the city would come and take his property if he said anything. And to me, trying to limit the voice of the people in this town is heading down that slippery slope of eventually ending up with nobody having a voice in this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi there, Timothy Davis, 18 Holly Street, and by the way, I am neutral on this item. I actually don't 100% agree with some of my Patriot friends here that are speaking. But you know, there's a lot of things come to mind here. This stuff, this is arbitrary. There's no basis for this. They're based off of each other. It's circular reasoning. We need to come up with a solution that works. We do have times that this is a problem, but it doesn't need to be a tool that's used all the time, just blanketly. No, we're just going to cut to 5 minutes. We're going to get out of here early. Well, tonight's a good illustration. There's lots of people here, contentious items, things like that, and we're probably going to get out of here pretty early. Not bad. Not 10, 11, 12 o'clock, you know. There needs to be a long-term solution for that. I mentioned that last time. We need to have full-time staff. I know you don't want to, Mr. Hurd. I know you don't want the money. But we need to do this. The city needs to do it. It doesn't cost that much with all the money we have. We need to have y'all paid so you can do this full time, or have the opportunity to do that so that more people can run for office and do this full time and do it right. Because I don't know how many times I've seen an item pulled or something and someone up here, not pointing any fingers, doesn't know what the heck is on the agenda. I'm not accusing anybody, but it has happened where y'all don't even know what's going on. So sometimes people need to speak longer, sometimes they don't. I've gotten better at not speaking longer. I've gotten better at just not being here, and I didn't want to be here. Didn't want to be here in January or whenever it was, but I just felt like compelled, like I had to do this. So I put forth a compromise. I sent y'all a very poorly edited, I reread it and I was like, oh my gosh, look at all the errors I made, email this morning. This is something I've been working on since before then. A lot of these ideas came to me, and I have more ideas than this, much more in depth with this, and I would love this to be tabled and a group brought together as a temporary committee or something to figure this out. But the compromise here is to remove the requirement to give your name before speaking. Obviously, I think everyone agrees that that would work. Then limit the time to talk time to 3 minutes. Now, this sounds confusing. If I'm confusing, I can do that. But this does make sense, and it could be implemented very simply. And this could be something other people could follow. Because sometimes we've got an empty room, sometimes we've got a full room. Limit the talk time to 3 minutes during citizens' communication, but allow anyone that requests extra time to automatically be granted that by the mayor. Only if no contentious items are expected down the agenda. Now, we have a good feel for all this stuff, and if there's some controversial item, we're all intelligent adults here. We can tell when something's going to be contentious, and I would contend that before that, we would have, and this probably has to be worded just right by a legal team and all this thing, but, and so it probably couldn't pass tonight in this form. I would contend that you could set up a process, very simple, that you could be automatically granted this if you request it. So most people won't even request it. They know they're going to talk 2 minutes, 3 minutes, but if they request it, they could automatically be allowed an extra 2 minutes during citizens' communications, okay? And then that would be granted unless there's some expectation of a very long night. And it can't be abused. There has to be something put in place so you can't do that. Anyways, keep the 5-minute time to speak intact for the individual item consideration portion. That is extremely important. I don't know, I see it time and time again. People get up there, they're flustered, and they're not given extra time. Meanwhile, Just tonight, a developer, I'm not going to name, at least twice was given way too much time to talk, to argue in their favor, which happens all the time. And then myself, I don't even get to talk because I saw something, and now we change the rules, the back and forth, before, after. It doesn't make any sense. It's one time it's one way, and another time it's another way. And I should be able to come to speak if my time's still available. I shouldn't be told I can't speak. But this one is, give me just a second here, so I'm going to reread it. Keep the 5-minute time to speak intact for the individual item consideration portion, but add a clause that allows council with a supermajority vote to limit this time based off of a simple hand count calculation. Mayor asks for a show of hands for and against an item, then the larger group is counted and that number is divided into 30 minutes. This takes like 2 seconds to calculate this. That number is then the time allotted for the speaker for, against, and neutral with a 30-minute time maximum. Sometimes you might have 30 seconds to talk, okay? You might have 30 seconds to talk, but it's fair. Everyone will get to talk the same amount of time, and it opens it up for a large group. Gives you the tools you need to do this on occasion when you need to, not just arbitrarily do this and restrict speech. And when you are taking your speech from one to another, that is restriction of speech. We have a timeline. To go less is actually a violation of the First Amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Ryan Garcia, New Braunfels District 4. I'm very much for eliminating the part where you have to say your address and making that actually on paper, I guess you could say. In regards to the citizens' communication, I hope the intent, and I pray the intent of this was to reduce meeting times. And it was not necessarily, not an attack on our First Amendment rights. I understand these meetings can go long, and there's times when we're going till 11, 12 o'clock, sometimes longer than that. And I hope you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Camerano, because I know you guys are kind of working together on this, that it was not the intent to infringe on everyone's First Amendment rights, but to reduce these meeting times and get everyone out of here at a decent hour. With that being said, I know back in December or January, whenever we had this last discussion, a lot of the items that were brought to the table were talking about the things that were taking up the most items in these meetings. Those items were the presentations. Every time there's a presentation where there's 1 or 2 presentations, they're going to last anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour and a half on those on a Monday night. And we take those off, put them into another night. I forget if it was Blinky or Hardy, you guys were talking about that and doing those on a different night. That right there reduces this meeting significantly, and we can get out of here by 7:30, who knows, 8 o'clock at night, every single Monday. So I am definitely against reducing the amount of time from 5 minutes to 3 minutes. That's quite a significant reduction as well. All of a sudden, you're reducing people's communication time by over 40%, from 5 minutes down to 3 minutes. So I really think there's other ways for us to be more efficient and work with the citizens, not infringe on our First Amendment right, but come up with a compromise that can work where we as citizens are able to communicate, but we're also able to reduce the times of these meetings. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to this item?
Yeah, my name is Michael French, 1161 Creek Canyon. I believe that's District 3. I'm all for taking addresses off. I don't want to say addresses because there's a lot of friends of mine, some not even here, that do get threats. They talk to me. But even on the outside, just if you live in New Braunfels, just check mark. The main reason that why we have speaking times for people, the public, is so that we can express what we want from you guys. And if any grievances or anything like that, there are presentations like the guy in the back, the gentleman in the back, he had a really good presentation. And he's really good at it. That's what he does. And he goes to 5 minutes, sometimes he goes less. But there's a lot of people that actually, they have stage fright. And a lot of times they forget what they want to say, but they never really express what they need to say. And 3 minutes is just not long enough. I believe that 5 minutes should stay 5 minutes. And cutting down 5 minutes, you won't get the full message. You're still going to get the message even if you went to 3 minutes, but you need people to talk fluently and calm. And going in against a 3-minute time clock is going to really mess with their mind, and they won't be able to express what they want to say. I just hope that you guys keep it to 5 minutes. I don't see why you should not keep it to 5 minutes. I know you want more people to speak. We have a half an hour, but I believe 5 minutes should stay 5 minutes. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Bentley Pies, and I live in Comaltown. As you may know, I am running for City Council in District 5, but I'm not here to campaign for myself. I'm here to voice a major concern that I have, one that is shared with many of the residents of District 5 that I have spoken to these past few weeks. And that is that citizens' voices are once again being limited even further by our elected officials. We currently get 5 minutes to speak. This is a time that our residents are able to voice their concerns and hold their local government accountable. This time gives them the platform needed to address their city council and to make their statements not only to you, but to the community that you are elected to represent. I have heard from residents throughout District 5 and across the city who are not in favor of having their voices limited. I ask that you consider your constituents and allow them to continue to have their voice without working to reduce the time that they are allowed to address this council. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Susan, excuse me, Susan Humphrey, 17 Mission Drive. This is going to be very short because elected public servants, their top priority should be to hear what the citizens have to say. And I think speaking here is a good way for y'all to have the pulse of the citizens of this city. And I think I would say to have even a longer time, not 5 minutes, I mean, the 30 minutes, have that longer so more people could speak and speak for the 5 minutes if they needed that. But y'all should have the people feel like they're encouraged to come before you and give their feelings about what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
Completed that PowerPoint presentation in time. Jim Holster, Oakwood Estates. Removing the address is okay with me. Leaving it there is okay with me. But everybody has an opinion, and some people have given good reasons, I guess, to remove it. Whether you put it in your district or the city, it really doesn't matter to me. There are, I think the general concern is, I get the feeling, and maybe it's a false feeling, that we want to reduce the time because we don't want to hear from the public. Now, we saw that happen. It really came up in NBU last year with the utilities when they took off. And I don't know if this is anticipation that's going to happen again. Most likely it will, based on my latest utility bill, even though it was cool during the weather. So, to me, free speech is important. Limiting speech is not a good idea. But there are other approaches to this. But I would recommend that you leave it at 5 minutes. But there are cities, and I Googled, you put up a list. I just did a general Google, and I found 5-minute cities too. Many more that were on this list up here. So now, you could have, this is what one city has, a 5-minute rule with 10 speakers. When it crosses 10 speakers that have signed up, then the city council has the option to reduce the following speakers are the whole thing at the beginning to 3 minutes. So 5 minutes generally, but when you have more signed up for a topic, then you could reduce it to 3 minutes. They actually have an ordinance on this effect. So, and when I spoke to the city staff at the city manager's office, they said, no, we wouldn't do away with the 5 minutes because communicating with the public is important to us. And we want our citizens, and they say we don't get a lot of 5-minute speakers, but it's a concept of freedom of speech, and it's also a concept of you relating to your constituents. So you say, what city, and I kind of gave this away earlier, what city does this? And is it, well, it's really an issue. We can't run our business because we have to stay here so late, et cetera, et cetera. And, well, the city that does this is Frisco, much bigger than our city, in fact, twice as big as our city. And they had this discussion about 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, and you can Google it. And they decided, nope, they were going to stay with 5 minutes. And when I spoke to the council, the city manager's office there, they said, we really, even this 3-minute rule, we seldom ever get there, you know, and they couldn't recall a time when they had been there. But I'm sure if y'all talk to them, city to city, you might be able to find something out on that regard. But see, they don't try to limit, and it's important to them. Also, I observed when I Googled this brought up, a majority of the council were women. Women are better listeners and sometimes much better decision makers. But that's just an observation. Now, here's the ordinance. Pursuant to the City of Frisco Ordinance Number 191086, each member of the public wishing to address the City Council shall be entitled to speak up to 5 minutes. Like I said, they reaffirmed this just 2 or 3 years ago. Unless 10 or more members of the public are present to speak on a single agenda item, in that case, the City Council may, by a majority of vote, reduce the allotted time from 5 minutes to 3 minutes per speaker to ensure that that's just why they believe citizen participation is important, as many people as possible the opportunity to speak, subject to requirements of other law. So I would hope you think through this. Maybe you don't do it tonight, but you start to think through this. Why? What's the motivation to do this? This city is twice as big as us. Now, maybe they are all of the same opinion. Now, it is the second or third wealthiest city in Texas. So I don't know if their demographics are different. Everybody just agrees and nobody will come up. And we're certainly experiencing pains of growth and always questions about that. So it just seems to me it's a little disconcerting that we're reducing the time. Can I live with 3 minutes? I might be able to, but I won't have a choice if you reduce it 3 minutes. But the more important thing is you're sending the message that citizens' comments, unlike the city of Frisco, bigger than us, operates with many more complex issues than us, they're able to do it. So, thank you very much.
Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Okay, seeing no one else, we'll turn this to council and see what,
I would like to make a comment, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Before I was on city council, I was sitting in the audience, and we had a subdivision coming in, Sunflower Ridge, which we're all familiar with now. We had probably 15 people here that night, and we had to come up with who was going to talk, because you're only allowed 6 people to talk, right, for the 30 minutes. So everyone didn't get to talk. I was one of the people that didn't talk that night. And so if there was 3 minutes, more people could have talked. So that's kind of my opinion on that one. It's not limiting people's time. You can still reach out, call us, email us at any point in time, but I understand you want to come up here and speak. I think if you're concise enough and to the point, you should be able to get your point across in 3 minutes. That's just my point on that. Citizens communication is different than an individual agenda item. Maybe we could keep that time at 5 minutes. And I don't think we have a limitation on citizen communication, do we? Mm-hmm. There is?
Yeah.
30 minutes?
Yeah, it's the same time restriction.
Okay. Maybe we can keep that one at 5 minutes and then agenda item possibly 3. Thanks.
Mr. Blakey, I see.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment too, that I think we're all on the same page in this sense that, and, you know, coming up and communicating with us, perfect, it's great, a way to emphasize things. And some of the folks that over the last year or so that have come up have started, you need to communicate with us, and it has been very helpful. Mr. Davis, for example, communicating through emails, through calls, through staff. I think we've seen a whole lot of changes in that. Coming up here is a minimal thing. I think, man, if you want to pound something through to us, email us, call us, you know, talk to the city staff in planning or streets. So go through those motions as well, and I think that's important. Coming up here, yeah, it's very important too, but I say add on to that.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'd just like to say I appreciate everyone's comments throughout this whole process and even tonight, but just want to clarify one thing, because I think there may be some misunderstanding, or maybe I'm the one, but there was some talk in all these iterations of staff presentations about limiting 24, 20 against and things like that. But the current process would still, if this passes, would be 30 minutes, as I understand. So, and I don't want to misquote Mr. Holster, but I think he said the city of Frisco wants as many people to talk as possible, and I agree with that process. And in fact, if my math is correct, if this passes, it'll be a 67% increase in citizen participation, because we're going from 6 speakers to 10 at 3 minutes apiece. Anybody can check my math. If I'm off on the math, I'm happy to hear about it on that aspect. So however you're coming from, and I'm not disagreeing with you, the individuals would have their time reduced. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying collectively, citizens as a whole, it would increase the number of citizens that could participate during that process. Back to Councilmember Willis's piece, I think it's a good idea to have city resident, ETJ, or other personally, right? Now, I will tell you, I run into folks quite frequently that believe they're city residents because they have a New Braunfels address, and they don't realize they're in ETJ. So it's on your word or what you believe. Not that anybody would be deceptive, but they may not know, right? Some people don't know what council district they're in. But I would encourage you to take the address off even the sign-in form out there, because I understand people's concerns, and put, you know, D1 through D6, ETJ, and other. I mean, that may be too much, but it gives the people the chance to say, here's my district, or we put a map up for them to better understand that. You know, they may get it wrong. It's okay, but it helps educate people, and also the ETJ, because we deal with some items in here that are in the ETJ, right? And people have a vested interest if they're in the ETJ as well, but not the person from Maryland, I think, as you use, or somebody else uses an example, or things like that. So personally, I'd say take the address off even the sign-in sheet, just put the districts or the checkbox, ETJ and other, just my opinion.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments?
I would also like to clarify that the mayor has ability to extend any agenda item and any individual to speak longer than 5 minutes currently.
Okay, any other comments? I want to encourage you that have brought items up and laid them on the table to, if you have something to share, if you'll share it with Ms. Wilkinson, and we'll be glad to encourage contacts with all those other cities, more than what we see here, I guess, is what was indicated. Also, Mr. Davis, I have a question for you. I think you said something, or someone, and it seems like it may have been a misunderstanding. We're talking about the address and the time tonight, and it may have been part of what you were reading off of your paper there. But we've all got a copy of it. If you want to share with Ms. Wilkinson your edited copy that you've made, we'd be happy to.
It's got notes.
Okay, be happy to have that, and that way we can maybe give some other consideration before the second reading.
It's also on my Facebook page. I posted up today, this little handout that we gave to everybody.
Yeah, if you can provide that hard copy
Yes,
for.
Sure. This is my notes on it. We have an extra one?
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, council?
yeah.
Council, what is the pleasure of council on this item 3G?
I move for approval with all city recommendations, with the addition requirement of the speaker to state if they are a resident, live in the ETJ or other, and have the sign-in sheet to match.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Willis to approve the items with the addition of the sign-in sheet requirements and stating whether they are in the city limits, ETJ, or district, right? Is there? Oh, ETJ or other, okay. Is there a second?
A second.
Councilmember Campos made the second, and this will just require a show of hands. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries 7-0. Thank you. All right, that was the first reading, and so all of you know there will be a second reading on this item, just like there are on other items that require a second reading. Item